So, for example, I think the issue on comfort rooms was focused more in the discussion on SOGIE, although SOGIE equality or accepting the different genders and integrating processes into our policies in order to really give opportunity for all genders to participate or to feel comfortable as they go about their daily tasks in school and in work. It's not just limited to whether or not the LGBT, for example, can enter the comfort rooms without harassment or anything. It's not just limited to comfort rooms per se, but it's also related more towards how we hire transgender, the LGBTQ, as well as acceptance policies in the school. So that's just to relate towards the SOGIE bill, which was a popular topic last year. Right now, there have also been policies here in Cagayan de Oro, for example, that have embraced non-discrimination. So is anyone active here in organizations, youth organizations here in CDO? If you are, or if you're familiar with the Oro Youth Development Council, it's the youth council in Cagayan de Oro. And the Oro Youth has pushed or has worked on a law already, or an ordinance on non-discrimination, which also includes non-discrimination towards the different genders, in terms of hiring, in terms of the enrollment in school, and so on and so forth. However, veering away from the topic on SOGIE, just SOGIE itself, or rather the SOGIE bill, let's really look through what is sexual orientation, what is gender identity, and what is gender expression. So, okay, can I ask you guys, who would like to discuss what is sexual orientation? What is sexual orientation, guys? Anyone? Kindly indicate your name, because I am on full screen right now, so I can't exactly see the videos in the Google Meet. So who would like to describe what is sexual orientation? I'll just go back to the call. For a moment, I'll just refer to the class list. Okay, those are maybe 3 topics, sexual orientation. If anyone can share about sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, I'll just choose 3 students. You can also refer to the book, of course, class. Okay, I'm just going through the class list. Okay, can we have Crizel, Miss Resabal?
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, Crizel. Also, your course class, please also introduce your course.
I'm from College of Teacher Education.
Okay, Crizel. So, yes, sexual orientation. Let's start off with that topic, Crizel.
For me, sexual orientation is a person's sexual identity related to the gender he or she is attracted to.
Okay. So identity relating to who they are attracted to. Thank you very much, Crizel.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of these topics might seem a little blurred. What could be the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation? Some of us might think that thank you very much for that definition, by the way, Crizel, because that is absolutely right. It does relate towards identity in relation to who we are attracted to. That is correct. So but I think that there are a little different. There are some differences, of course, between the three topics that we have here: gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. That's right. No, so as mentioned by Crizel, sexual orientation relates to who we are attracted to. So, for example, if we discuss or if we relate towards us, no, the usual norm, or there are norms, however, we also accept, or we also know that there are other ways of being attracted towards other people, and maybe sometimes we ourselves might find ourselves being attracted to various genders that we might not have expected of ourselves to be attracted to initially, because as young people, there are experiences in life wherein we meet people, and then sometimes, especially because of the backgrounds that we are raised around. So for example, in our country, that we are living in a country that is predominantly Christian and Muslim, no? So there are concerns, or maybe some concerns really on sexual orientation, and there are norms that are really pushed towards, not in relation to who we should be attracted to. But I think I have mentioned this as well in the previous lessons that we've had, that if ever we do discover that we are attracted to people of the opposite sex, and even if within the same sex, although I'm not assuming that that is really the case for all young people, no, it's actually a manner of just discovery, no, just discovering who we really are, and as well as maybe sometimes some people don't even subscribe to labels. I know some, or maybe most people, class, no, who are bisexual, who are pansexual, which we are going to discuss later on. But they don't really like having to succumb to pressure to name who they are in terms of their sexuality. But there are also people who also are very quite clear about their identity, their gender identity. So in relation to sexual orientation, later on we're going to look through videos, not as the same videos that I have posted in the classroom actually. If you've seen it, maybe the videos later on will just be a review for us. So yes, sexual orientation relates towards who we are attracted to. And in relation to who we are attracted to, sexual orientation covers 3 dimensions of sexuality, namely sexual attraction. So for instance, usually, no, for us, no, or the usual practice is being attracted to the opposite sex. So that means that we are heterosexuals, being attracted towards the opposite sex. So if for a guy being attracted to a girl, and then for a girl being attracted to a guy, so that is part of sexual orientation. Now, however, there are also other sexual orientations, homosexuality, as what we have learned, no? Being attracted to the same sex. So for a guy, for example, to be attracted to a guy, or a girl to be attracted to the same sex, towards girls as well. So that is sexual or attraction. However, sexual orientation, class, no, sometimes there are people who are attracted to both sexes, no, both guys and girls, and this can also relate as well towards sexual attraction, or who we are attracted to sexually. So sometimes maybe some people might be attracted to how a person looks like, attracted to maybe, let's say for straight guys, no, straight guys and girls being attracted to for straight guys, no, being attracted to girls, so they like girls, and while straight guys would prefer to date women, no? So that is basically sexual orientation. Emotional preference as well. However, let's say for gays, no, gays and bisexuals or lesbians, being primarily attracted to and having emotional preference in terms of relationships towards the same sex, that would equate towards towards the LGBT sexual orientation or homosexual, the homosexuals or sexual orientation, which is absolutely, there are no rights or wrongs in this sense. So emotional preference, social preference as well, self-identification, and then heterosexual or homosexual lifestyle. So aside from who we are attracted to, how we also live out our lives, no, as straight or LGBT, that is also related to sexual orientation. And as what we see here, sexual orientation can be viewed within the following spectrum, from straight to LGBT, no? So as what we can see, maybe it's better if we start off with the categories here. So we've discussed heterosexuals and homosexuality already. Bisexuals as well, as what we have learned, or as what I have mentioned earlier, being attracted to both sexes. So here, sometimes no, I'm not saying that it applies to everyone, but often maybe it might be a point of confusion for young people if they notice that, for example, they meet a friend, or there are certain individuals that they meet in life that are of the same sex towards them, and maybe that would be a cause of concern now for young people, that does that mean that I'm already gay just because, or I'm already a lesbian just because I like this person? So as what I think I've mentioned this as well in the past, no? Often part of sexuality is the tendency to also be attracted to the types of persons that we see a certain type of good quality within them, such as beauty, no? Or we like how connected we are with that other person. Sometimes it doesn't really equate that if a person is attracted to other people in that sense, among same sex, no? Being attracted to the same sex, it doesn't really equate that a person is already gay or lesbian immediately. Although there are individuals who are very clear about the fact that they are gay or lesbian, no? But still sometimes it's just a matter of like seeing good qualities towards the other person, and often it doesn't really mean that we want to be sexually related to them or engage in any of those forms of engagements towards the same sex. But so what I've read, that people do have a tendency to be attracted to the same sex sometimes, but it doesn't equate to them being gay, no? But whatever the preference is, it really depends on the person and how they or we would identify ourselves with in terms of sexuality. So just in relation to bisexuality, no? Then asexual refers to individuals who don't exactly conform to a sexual orientation. Would you know that there are people who aren't really attracted to any sex at all? That they are not attracted to guys or girls. They are just as mentioned here in the book, no? If we go to page 46, that's found on page 46. Asexuals are people without sexual feelings or associations. They can still experience attraction, but this attraction doesn't need to be realized in any sexual manner. Some people do not have sexual attraction or desire, and they may identify as asexual. Then lastly, we have pansexual. Pansexuals are people who are attracted to all genders, and it is called omnisexuality. Being attracted to all genders, whether that is straight or gay, no? So it is the sexual. So it is called omnisexuality, the sexual, romantic, or emotional attraction towards people regardless of their sex or gender identity. So as what we can see here in the spectrum, we start off with straight here in the right. So from straight or heterosexuality to asexual, those who don't really conform to being attracted to any sexes or to any sex. Then we have pansexual, those who are attracted to all sexes, and then bisexual, those who are attracted to both male and female. What's the difference between bisexuals and pansexuals? Pansexuals would be attracted to transgenders as well, I believe, a tendency to also be attracted to transgenders. For example, a girl, no, if a girl likes both guys and girls, and they also can fall in love with transgenders. Transgenders being that individuals who believe that their biological sex doesn't conform with their gender identity. So also having a romantic or emotional or sexual attraction towards all genders, that would be pansexual. For bisexuals, on the other hand, these are people who are attracted to both guys and girls. And then homosexuality or gays, no, or the LGBT or homosexuality refers to individuals who are attracted to the same sex. So that would be for sexual orientation. Now, coming out, talking about really telling other people about our own sexuality, as what we can see here. So, coming out really starts with about 3 phases. This is very technical, everyone know, but for young people who might have journeys or experiences relating to really showing their sexuality towards their friends or their families, coming out really starts with knowing ourselves first. That is the realization, as what we can see here on page 46. The realization emerges that one is sexually and emotionally attracted to members of one's own sex. This is often described as an internal coming out and can occur in childhood or at puberty, but sometimes as late as age 40 or older. So in knowing oneself, coming out really starts with knowing that we are attracted to certain genders. No, and this can be really hard sometimes, especially for guys. I saw a film lately, class, called Lady Bird. If you're familiar with that movie, kinsa na nakakita na nga movie. Si Saoirse Ronan ang starring. Funny kay ito nga film kay it was basically Saoirse Ronan dated a guy, no? But then she found out that her boyfriend was gay because she saw that he was kissing another guy in an event or a night out that they had. So she felt really angry, but a part of her also empathized a lot with her ex-boyfriend. They broke up eventually, but then a few months later, her ex-boyfriend went and saw her, went to her workplace and talked to her, and she really saw that her ex-boyfriend was already her friend, that her ex was really torn about his feelings about being gay. And if you have seen another movie titled The Half of It, if kinsa niya nakakita na ang salida, class, naagyapon siya sa Netflix, no? It's also about, kita na mo na?
Yes, ma'am.
No? So katong The Half of It, it discussed about a story of a teenager who was making homework for her classmates. It was set in America. But then, long story short, she was paid to write love letters to a girl because this there was a friend of hers who had a crush on another girl in school, and then he paid Ellie Chu, ito yung ngalan, no? He paid Ellie Chu. Ellie Chu was the main character. Ellie, di ko sure sa name though. He paid her to write love letters to that girl he was crushing on. But then eventually she found herself falling in love with a girl. But and then at the end, they were able to like share a kiss and everything with that girl, and the girl also, I think, found. I'm not sure if the girl realized that she also liked Ellie back, but I guess those feelings can be something that can be confusing for anyone, and sometimes just because of our society, it might lead people to really be confused about who they are as in terms of their sexual orientation. But still, it's also a good. It's not. We're not saying well, it would be a good practice, of course, to really get to know someone or ourselves better, as mentioned earlier by Ancher, really being self-aware and accepting ourselves as well, because how can we come out to other people if we don't really accept ourselves and how we feel about other people, no? It's really about knowing oneself. But for straight guys and girls, I guess this isn't really a big deal or a big issue, because it might be clear for us that we like the opposite sex. The problem now is that how do we also engage in relationships with others, or if we are already in a relationship, how can we grow those relationships better? I guess that would be just a discussion on that. Now, going back to coming out in the second phase, although it's very technical, but once we have gone through maybe a long period of introspection, of knowing ourselves, and hopefully, what's the term there? Arriving at a point where we feel like we want the people closest to us to know about our journey, about our own sexual orientation journey. The second part in relation to coming out would be deciding to come out to others, which doesn't really have to be something that has to be done. There are some people who don't exactly even come out, they just decide to keep their sexuality private. But sometimes it is also an event or an instance within the family, for example, which may or may not lead to acceptance. More often, I have maybe just stereotypes in movies now that sometimes coming out to the family would lead to non-acceptance, but it does really happen, class. I have attended some testimonial talks by the LGBT. I think I've mentioned this as well in the previous classes. Testimonial talks by the LGBT in relation to sharing about their experience coming out to their family. And there was one speaker during a testimonial talk last December that we had in another school that I was teaching in last year. That testimonial talk from members of the LGBT. One of the speakers, she identified herself as bisexual, but she really shared about her life experience wherein her family didn't really accept her as when she came out as being lesbian, but still she experienced, it's not a still, but she really experienced running away from her family because of that, and she knew at a young age who she really was, that she really liked girls, and she also was a little bit of a tomboy. But then when she grew up, when she got to college, she started to date guys as well, and then she also became familiar, or she liked to dress in more girly attires instead of being just more of a tomboy when she was a child. So sexuality basically, but let's just go back to her experience on coming out. It is very difficult. There is still a little bit of a stigma, of course, in our society. And imagine if we, no, how about in the future, if ever we have a gay or a lesbian child, nor even a transgender child, would we still give a lot of love for our children? Hopefully, yes, class, no, because in our discussions, when it comes to sexuality, really, this is a journey that other people are going through, and it's not our decision to change who they are. No, it would be if ever we know someone or if we ourselves are going through those experiences and on coming out, it would be good for us to really show support, no, for people who are having a hard time in terms of coming out, because it's really I think in the Philippines, no, our country is more open towards the LGBT compared to, let's say, Russia. Or would you know that in Russia, if a person is openly gay, there is a huge backlash towards the gay community in Russia and for example in the Middle East as well. So there are really countries that are quite violent to a degree towards the LGBT. So in our country, I think we know someone, or we might be also be someone who is LGBT, who I'm sure that you guys also have siblings, cousins, no? Know people who are transgender. So in their experiences, it's good for us to really show support as well. And we should know that we should really focus on who a person is, their character, instead of just their gender identity nor sexual orientation. So deciding to come out to others. Then next, we have living openly as an LGBT person. So once a person comes out, essentially, another part of sexual orientation would be really to live openly as an LGBT, whether that is in terms of how we dress, which is related to gender expression later on, or if it is related to how we really talk, no, living out as an LGBT person, going to places that are exclusively for the LGBT, or participating in drag races, for example, if you're familiar with that. Really expressing himself or herself as a gay person in society. That would then be the next step, or the third step towards coming out. Are there any questions for this part? Okay, seeing none, let's now proceed to gender identity class. So the second question here, or the second term here, is gender identity. Who would like to define what is gender identity? It's there in the textbook, page 47. Define and explain what is gender identity. Okay, I'll just choose again. Can we have Janelle Salise? Is Janelle here? I'll just go to the call. Okay, I don't think Janelle is here this morning. Can we have Ina? Miss Pableo.
Yes, ma'am. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so what is gender identity, Ina? Course as well, Ina, kindly introduce yourself and your course.
Yes, my name is Maria Ina Pableo. My course is BS in biology. Gender identity for me, I believe, means that how a person identifies themselves on a specific gender. Yes, that's all.
Exactly. How a person identifies themselves. Thank you, Ina.
Thank you, ma'am.
So how a person identifies themselves. So if sexual orientation is about how we find ourselves, who we find ourselves attracted to, and and in terms of lifestyle, no, heterosexual or homosexual lifestyle, gender identity is that's right, how a person identifies themselves. So for straight guys and girls, this might not be a very huge challenge, no? But how about, as mentioned as well during this morning, how about for the transgender or for the LGBTQ, no? Identifying ourselves. So gender identity refers to one's personal experience of gender or sexual relations. It determines how one sees himself or herself in relation to gender and sexuality. And a person could identify himself or herself as masculine or feminine. So some categories here, actually masculine and feminine is more on gender expression, but the actual categories, there are two: cisgender and transgender. Now, at this point, class, we're just going to proceed to the video on gender, on SOGIE, basically. But as what we can see here, gender identity should always be the individual's decision to disclose their gender identity to other people. So in the video that we will watch, can I ask if you guys have seen the video on the Google Classroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Kita na nato to, no? Maybe we can just yeah, we can just skip na lang siguro the video kaya nakakita naman ang kasagara. But yes, just proceeding back to the discussion. The video was very good, no, in trying to break down the various gender identities. But I think will just look through the second part of the video, which was on what you need to know about SOGIE Part 2, because that was quite good. In the second part of the video, it was from Rappler, basically, and the hosts discussed about gender identity. So yeah, let's just proceed. Before anything else, maybe we can just point out about cisgender and transgender. Anyone wants to identify what is cisgender and transgender? Cisgender basically discusses about, this is a category in gender identity as what we can see here in the book, page 47. Cisgender are people whose gender and assigned sex are the same. Someone who was male at birth identifies as a man, and someone who is female at birth identifies as a girl, no, or a woman. It is from the word cis, meaning same. So a person whose gender reflects their sex assigned at birth is a cisgender. So basically, maybe let's say straight people, no, are most often cisgender. So that is a gender identity. However, transgenders are people whose assigned sex and gender are different. It is from the word trans, meaning, which is borrowed from chemistry, meaning different. So an umbrella term for people whose gender identity or expression differs from what is typically associated with sex assigned at birth. So people who would feel that their sex isn't really related to or isn't really in line with how they feel on the inside. And then under gender identity, we can discuss about the LGBTQIA umbrella. So we're familiar already with the first few terms here: lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transsexuals. Intersex, as what we can see here in the book, page 48. Intersex are persons who, with a less common combination of hormones. The term assigned sex is used instead of okay, so intersex refers to people whose anatomy are are not exactly clear at birth class, no? These are very rare instances, intersex, wherein when a person is born, their genitalia isn't really quite clear. Some of the names of these syndromes there are many examples of intersex, such as Klinefelter syndrome, androgen insensitivity syndrome, and congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So the term assigned sex is used instead of just sex because doctors will usually determine a baby to be either male or female, even though the reality is not always that definite. People who have chromosomes, hormonal profiles, or genitals that are not typically male or female are called intersex. So typically, parents and medical professionals usually coercively assign intersex infants as sex and have in the past been medically permitted to perform surgical operations to conform the infant's genitalia to that assignment. So this is a very rare case na intersex. Then queer or questioning. Queer refers to people queer is an umbrella term for people who do not ascribe to a particular sexual orientation or gender identity. This was what I had mentioned earlier, that there are some people who don't really subscribe to labels. Sometimes they date guys, sometimes they date girls during different periods of their life, and they don't like labels. So that would be related. That would be queer, na. That is a term usually for these individuals. Or questioning. So questioning refers to people who are in the process of exploring and discovering their sexual orientation and gender identity. Lastly, we have ally. So allies are people who support and respect members of the LGBTQIA community. I saw an interesting documentary the other day about a campaign that was done, class, no? It was actually a talk in National Geographic because National Geographic has featured sexuality, no, and gender in one of their magazine issues in the past, and they have an extensive coverage of sexuality in their channel. I think I also shared this to you guys if you have ever watched that. That campaign, there was a campaign that was shared by one National Geographic explorer. Now, he did a campaign in Jamaica because Jamaica apparently it's a country in the Caribbean, not just between America, some islands between America and South America. And in Jamaica, there is a huge backlash of the LGBTQ in that country. Not many people really are open towards the LGBT in Jamaica. So there was a campaign that they did wherein some LGBT in Jamaica wrote letters it was somewhat like a coming out letter to their friends or family, asking their friends and family to be allies. For example, if a person is harassed publicly in their community for being gay, having allies beside them or having friends who would support them can be a way to really help them in their journey. So if ever I hope that we ourselves can grow into becoming an ally for maybe our LGBTQ friends, or if we ourselves are homosexual as well, then hopefully we can find support from our friends and family who are our supporters in this journey. So just proceeding now to the video. That's the second part, how to find out or how to just some points about sexuality and sexual orientation, gender identity. This is the second part of the series from Rappler. So, okay, I think the audio is, I'll just refresh it for a moment, class.
You have to watch.
All right.
Explainer.
Last time we discussed the elements of SOGIE. So why do people still get confused?
here's the thing. These elements of SOGIE can be mixed and matched in so many ways.
We'll tell you more about that in this video.
Let me give you some examples.
People can be assigned female at birth, grow up to have feminine expressions, identify as a woman, and be attracted to a man. This identity is called cisgender, which happens when your biological sex matches your identity. Let's call this person Sophia. Sophia was born female. She likes pink and played with dolls when she was little. She likes fashion, so she went to design school and became a designer. She met a guy and fell in love. They got married and now have 3 children.
Meanwhile, you can be assigned male at birth, raised to be masculine, identify as a man, and then later realize that you are attracted to another man. Your attraction doesn't change your identity. You still see yourself as a man, but you're a man attracted to men. Let's call this person Kevin. Kevin was born male. His dad is a policeman who wanted him to follow his path. He was captain of their basketball team in high school and an active Boy Scout. In college, he was more attracted to guys both romantically and sexually. Kevin is male, identifies as a man, but is attracted to males who are also masculine.
For others, you can be assigned female at birth.
So this can be quite confusing, class, especially if it doesn't mean that if we are gay, doesn't mean that we are already transgender or cisgender. Let's just say that, to make it simple, sexual orientation in the case of Kevin, what is his sexual orientation? He is gay, no? So he is attracted to men, to the same sex. However, his gender identity is still male. That he believes that he is still just looking through his own gender identity. No, he is still cisgender. This doesn't mean that he is transgender. That he wants to transform or to change his sex. No, it isn't really the case. So gender identity would be that in the process, Kevin would identify himself as a male, no, biologically male, but still he's not transgender. He's just he is just attracted to the same sex. So gay, just in terms of sexual orientation, he would identify himself as gay. In terms of gender identity, he would identify himself as male, no. But maybe in a way, gender identity can still be, or cisgender rather. Kevin would identify himself as cisgender, not exactly male, but cisgender. His biological sex is also in line with his with how he sees himself, no, as a male. So that's in this case.
Also masculine.
For others, you can be assigned female at birth, grow up feminine, but identify as androgynous and bisexual, someone who gets attracted to both sexes. Let's name this person JB. JB was born female, grew up to like dolls and makeup, made a career as a lifestyle writer, but also likes boxing on her downtime. She's attracted to both men and women and has had relationships with both. JB considers herself bisexual.
There are also people who were assigned male at birth, express themselves in feminine ways, and realize their identity does not match with the sex organ that they have. They may identify as transgender, may or may not be attracted to males, and may or may not decide to get sexual reassignment surgery.
Okay, so take note na, they may, so for example, for this individual, he or she, let's say she na, because it's already, since she doesn't really identify as a male, but she feels that she is a woman, na, so her biological sex isn't really related to how she feels in the inside. So if let's look at these 2 points here. Or she may or may not be attracted to males, no? For example, let's say for a transgender guys, no? For her, let's say she is a transgender, so she may be attracted to since she is a woman, no, she identifies herself as a woman, she may be attracted to fellow. There are some transgenders who still, for example, for males, no, who transform into females, they might still be attracted to women as well. So that is a case, or it's really a case-by-case basis. They may change how they look like from a man to a woman, but they can still be attracted to women still. So it may be that how are they going to go about with their relationships then in that sense? It doesn't mean that they are also going to be gay as well. No, they can still be attracted to women. Case in point would be for Joey and Angie Medking. So in their relationship, Angie Medking, she used to be Ian, but she used to be Ian, but then she transformed to become Angie, or she identified herself as transgender, and now she's living openly as a transgender now, but she's still attracted to women, to her wife, who is Joey. So it is a little confusing, but it doesn't really mean that if a person is transgender, they are also gay or they are attracted to the same sex. Some transgenders, maybe in a way it is being attracted to the same sex because they are now identifying themselves as a woman, but still, it doesn't really follow that they are also attracted to the same, or to the same sex all the time, no? But there are also some people though who do become sexually attracted to the same sex. Or for example, in the film, what's the title of that film? The Danish Girl. If you're familiar with The Danish Girl, it's a movie starring Eddie Redmayne about the first transgender who underwent sexual reconstructive surgery. No? I'm not going to just spoil the movie for anyone who would like to watch that film, The Danish Girl, but she eventually, she also had Eddie Redmayne in the movie, became a transgender. And when she started to wear women's clothing and decided to undergo the surgery, she also had a wife actually when she was still a man, and they married. But her wife, no, Eddie Redmayne's wife, was there beside her throughout the whole experience of transitioning because of their love for each other. But eventually Eddie Redmayne started to date guys as well. So that was another instance wherein the transgender person also started to date the same sex. So it is a little confusing in a way, but there are really individuals who do identify with these with these dynamics in society. So they may or may not also undergo surgery. So for example, if a transgender doesn't really feel like they need to undergo sex change, so they don't have to, but if they identify themselves as a woman or a man, then it would be good for other people to also use the right pronouns. No? If they don't really feel like they are men, no, or they are guys, so we do not use the pronouns he when we talk to them, especially if they look feminine. The key rule class when it comes to what pronouns to use is really if they look feminine or if they look masculine, then we should use the appropriate pronoun. If we're talking to a transgender who clearly looks womanly, who really has really put in a lot of investment not to look like a woman, taking hormones, then we should, and then changing their name as well into a woman. So I know a lot of individuals actually in my social circle who are transgender. If you're familiar with Mindanao Pride as well, it's an organization here in Cagayan de Oro and in Mindanao, and there are a lot of LGBT in Mindanao Pride. So yes, I do know some friends now who have already changed their names from their masculine names when they were in elementary, and now they have really changed to a feminine name. So it would be good for us not to refer to these individuals as females already, because they have changed their name, changed their how they look like now into a woman. So that would be the rule of thumb. And then we also use the names that they want to be addressed as. For example, if the person, if you used to know them as Michael in high school, but then they changed their name to Mandy now, and then they clearly have gone through the whole procedure of taking hormones, having long hair, dressing very womanly. So we should also start to call them Mandy as well, and not really Michael anymore, and refer to them as her or she. Then, however, on the flip side, for transgender males, not for women who decide to change to men, or yes, to identify themselves as men. So it's the same thing. If it's very clear that they look manly, that they have even undergone some procedures, some surgeries, and the way that they dress. I, for one class, I have an aunt who is lesbian now, who is working in another country in Vienna. And my tita, we should actually start calling her Tito already, but I'm not really sure, because she insists on, or it's actually quite usual for us to still call her Tita. But I bet that she actually changed her name as well, not to a man's name, and throughout her life, throughout the time that I've known her, or my tita, she has always been a tita, no? So it really depends on her if she also wants to be called tita or tito. But still, no, if we're confused, it's always better to ask. So if some LGBT would say that it's fine to call them either way, tita or tito, but often the rule of thumb is really to call them by how they look like. So that's just for the pronouns. Let's continue on. We were just discussing about who transgenders are attracted to, and whether or not they would undergo sex change. So continuing on.
Let's call this person CJ. CJ was born male, but growing up, she knew that she was a woman trapped in a male body. CJ loved cross-dressing, and she was dressing like a woman because she knew deep in her heart that she is a woman. CJ started taking hormones to stop her voice from getting low and to feminize her physical appearance. She also had breast implants, but is still undecided if she wants to undergo gender reassignment surgery. CJ is a trans woman.
So in SOGIE, it's clearly not one size fits all.
You can't help but be born with the sex organs you were born with, but your gender does not depend on that.
More importantly, figuring out your gender doesn't happen overnight. It's usually a process where you fine-tune the things you like and don't like, what you find true or not true, and choose what best suits you.
SOGIE is not a label, but a guide to help you determine who you are.
So the next time you look at someone, don't make assumptions right away. Remember that there's a gender-bred person in every one of us.
Okay. So that would be the discussion. Now, continuing on to gender expression. Okay, we will have a short exercise after this class. I'll send you a Google form to go through. Maybe I can just ask this or assign this as an assignment for everyone. But we'll discuss about the gender-bred person shortly. Okay. So continuing on to here. So that is the discussion on gender identity. Again, the two main categories of gender identity is really cisgender and transgender. And then LGBTQIA would fall under either sexual orientation or gender identity. No? So we can use the LGBTQIA or heterosexuality or straight under either sexual orientation or gender identity. But the categories under sexual orientation is really homosexuality or heterosexuality. Or the other sexual orientations under here. And again, for gender identity, two main categories are cisgender and transgender. Let's now go to gender expression. So for gender expression, as what we can see here, gender expression determines how one expresses his or her sexuality through the actions or manner of presenting oneself. So that can be through, we have the following technical categories, no, but gender expression is related towards how we express ourselves, how we dress, how we talk, no? And in relation as well to how we present towards ourselves towards others. As what we can see here in page 49. So gender expression is something that often changes from day to day, outfit to outfit, and event or setting to an event or setting. So it's about how the way you express yourself aligns or doesn't with traditional ways of gendered expression and can be motivated by your gender identity, sexuality, or something else completely. For example, if it's just for fun, if a person just wants to dress up as a woman, that would be for, let's say, for example, drag queens. So that would be just for fun. So like gender identity, there is a lot of room for flexibility for gender expression. And as we can see here, the categories under gender expression, although these are very technical, but we have masculine, a person who has qualities and characteristics which are associated with a man. Feminine, traditionally associating with qualities or characteristics of being a woman. Gender neutral, a person whose qualities differ from those which are traditionally associated with a man or woman. So you may or may not have friends, or maybe we ourselves might be people who are gender neutral or androgynous. Somewhat androgynous is a person whose qualities are a combination of those traditionally associated with a man or woman. Androgynous would be, for example, cutting our hair, no? For individuals who would, for a woman, for example, who would cut her hair really short in a crop haircut, but still wear girly attire at the same time, or a guy who would grow his hair out. It doesn't mean that they are gay or anything, no, or it doesn't even mean that they are androgynous if they grow their hair out, or if they basically wear feminine attire at the same time. Basically, these are, maybe we can say that they might want to dress femininely in a way. So gender expression relates to how we express ourselves through how we behave, outward appearance as well. So that is for gender expression. Now, here we have the genderbread person, as what we can see in page 51 of the book. So the genderbread person, tying in all of those three components together: class, sexual orientation, gender identities, gender expression. The genderbread person basically talks about how a person would identify themselves, no? Overall, as a person, in terms of sexual orientation, identity, and expression. So for identity, that is located around the head part of the genderbread person. So how we see ourselves. Orientation, sexual orientation is who we love. And then expression as well is on how is located around the body. So from head to toe, how we look like, how we behave, how we project ourselves towards others, that is gender expression. And then biological sex, the biological sex that the person is born into. So for gender identity, we have here the spectrum or the categories, as we had mentioned earlier: cisgender, transgender, So, for example, for me, I would say that I am a cis woman. That is, my biological sex really relates towards my biological sex is how I also see myself. I was born female, so I am also a woman, no? And then for gender expression, that's my identity. I identify myself as a woman, so I see myself as a girl, no? And then for gender expression, the categories would be feminine, masculine, or androgynous or non-binary. For instance, again, maybe for you as well now, it might be the same. In terms of my gender expression, I would really, express myself as a female, wearing makeup, being more particular with fashion. I also behave as a woman. I'm very particular about that actually in terms of how I present myself in at work, no? At work and in my relationships with my friends and with the opposite sex, no? In terms of biological sex, we have female, intersex, or male. Obviously, my biological sex would be female, and then sexual orientation. Who am I attracted to? I am basic. I am pretty basic class, heterosexual, not straight, female. So I am attracted to men, no? So that would be my sexual orientation. Sexual orientation falls under the heart area.